Hello everyone, it is Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, including the stuff from Vivid Voltage, make sure you go ahead and check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code Omnipoke. For today's video, we are going to be talking about the new 140 cards that we've heard about from Single and Rapid Strike Master. This was revealed overnight for me. And I've been able to have a quick look over the cards, and you'll be getting some pretty raw reactions over these things. This is going to be part of our March set Battle Styles, and that's going to be really interesting to see. There's also a few cards coming out in February that I wanted to go over, which I haven't really done a first impressions on just yet. There isn't enough cards from Shiny Star V for me to do a full set review, but there are 14 cards that will give you my first impressions of now. And there's also in February going to be the Venusaur Blastoise V starter boxes as well that have a couple of interesting cards in there to discuss. So we'll start there, then we'll jump over to the Single and Rapid Strike Master cards. Plenty of good cards to talk about. So we'll start with the V battle decks that we're getting on February 5th in English. The Venusaur V and VMAX doesn't look too appealing. Obviously, it's a fire weak Pokemon, which is already a big awkward weakness to have. You have the Venusaur V that has 220. You can do 50 and heal from itself, and then 190 and 32 itself. Nothing too interesting there. The VMAX, kind of chonky at 330 hit points. Again, that weakness is going to be a big problem for it. Forest Storm does 30 times the amount of grass energy attached to your Pokemon. So there is a new Cherim in Single and Rapid Strike Master. They can rain dance grass energies, but to non what's it called? Rule box Pokemon, which is essentially Pokemon that are only one prize. All rule box Pokemon essentially encompass GX, EX, V, anything that's multi-prize basically. So that means you can't power up the Venusaur VMAX, but it could be a way that you could be a grass deck that throws energy everywhere, and then the Venusaur kind of just puts two on himself manually over a couple of turns, and you can do a decent chunk of damage. There's currently the Shaman Prism star, which has the same attack as the Forest Storm. So in theory, you could get a bunch of energies into play, but still, it's a decent multiplier, but you need so much to come off for you for it to be very meaningful damage. And Gmax Bloom for Grass, Colorless does 210, and you heal 30 from this guy. Again, it's just not super efficient. When you're weak to fire and a 3-prize Pokemon, that's already a huge issue for you. There's actually more good fire support in the Battle Styles set as well. There's the Victini V Max, which looks strong, so that's an issue. We have a really cool Celebi, though, from the set. And the Celebi and the Manaphy are the two cards that I want to talk about most from these little V battle decks. The Celebi is a basic grass type 70 hit points that has the ability Forest Exploration. Once during your turn, if it's your active, you can look at the top 6 cards of your deck, choose an energy you find there, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Then shuffle the other cards back into your deck. So this is really nice. It kind of is a Stellar-ish style effect. Where it's more similar to an energy lotto, right? But this is going to be something that can sit on the board. It can be U-turn boarded or air ballooned, which is nice to try and get value throughout the entire game. I think there's a few things that really make me like the Celebi. Firstly, we have capture energy in the format. So turn 1, Celebi is a good lead for you if you can play a deck that has capture energy. Which makes this really, really good because it gets you your first turn attachment as well as potentially like a nice secondary basic for you if you're trying to play a stage 1 or basic sort of like 1-prize deck. It could be really nice, or just anything with colorless attack costs that can take advantage of this. And the other thing that stands out is triple acceleration or twin energy style attacking decks can use the Celebi to give yourself an easier time of finding that in the early turns. Now, I don't necessarily think that Mad Party will be playing something like this card, but like I said, if there is a deck that can take advantage of capture energy and a few other colorless energies, the Celebi could be really, really good for that. So kind of excited for the flexibility of this card. It's basically another tutor similar to Stellar-Wish that doesn't send itself to sleep. So it's obviously not as good as Stellar-Wish because energy are far more limited than item and trainer cards. but still interesting to note. And obviously, this can also grab basic energies, so you know, in theory, it could be like an ADP card where it can help pick out your early game waters and metal energies, etc. I don't think the card's strong enough for that position. I think ADP is too tight of a list these days, too aggressive of a list to need something like the Celebi, but certainly an option for you if you really wanted to. There is a reprint of Boss's Orders and Professor's Research, so now you can take your pick of your favourites. Then we go on to the Blastoise deck. It's, again, a pretty vanilla basic 220 hit points, 1 for 30 and 3 for 200. Yes, we have Frostmoth, so maybe the 3 for 200 is good enough, but probably not so much. And then we have the VMAX, 330 hit point VMAX with cannons coming out from all directions. You do 120, and you can search your deck for 3 waters and attach them to your bench Pokemon in any way that you like. We know this effect of the attack is very good. We've seen Full Blitz and we've seen Ultimate Ray, and they're basically carrying the format still. However, water Pokemon already have Buckets and Frostmoth, so acceleration was never really their problem. The one thing this would kind of do is that once you get your first Moth Blastoise built, you can ignore putting any more Snoms or Frostmoths into play, because even if Frostmoth is knocked out, you can at least Grandfall to your next thing, so you should never run out of energies from the first time a Blastoise is built. But this damage output isn't, you know, super appealing. It does move into Bombard fairly well for most VMAXs, so at least that's going for you. So you've got your game plan of, like, get this on turn 2, try and get this attack ready for turn 3. It's not too difficult to get going. And Gmax Bombard does 220 and 30 to 2 of your opponent's bench. We do have the Telescopic Sight in the format, but for me this is still kind of slow, kind of weak. Its lightning weakness is obviously holding it back, at least until rotation. And we've seen Inteleon not see any success right now in the current format, and this is more steps than Inteleon, and in theory I think 1 targeted 60 damage is better than 2 targeted 30s, because you'll be way more reliant on the Telescopic Sight with this guy than the Inteleon, because 30 is just not meaningful enough damage, whereas 60 is still okay, that moves into a 90 later. So yeah. The Manaphy, probably the most interesting card that I wanted to talk about from this little mini set. It has the Ocean Search ability, and it's the exact same as the Celebi, but instead of picking an energy out, you're picking a Pokemon out. And I think oftentimes picking a Pokemon is way better for you, especially for one prize, kind of like basic and stage 1 attacking decks, because the biggest issue with stage 1 kind of rush attacker type things, obviously ADP, is one big issue. But the other thing is just making sure you have that chain of attackers going. Not only do you have to find your next stage 1 that turn, you also need to find your next basic, so that, you know, you're expecting the stage 1 to die each turn. You need to keep looping your attacker over and over again. Manaphy makes that pretty good for you and pretty easy, and at the same time it can be good just straight away. When you start with the Manaphy, it can help you get multiple basics down, which is always a good thing. So yeah, this card looks very, very promising. I think for the Celebi and the Manaphy, we may not see much action from these until post-rotation when ADP goes, but this is some good groundwork. Pretty happy to see that. The rest of the stuff is pretty trash from here. So again, before we get to the single and rapid strike stuff, in February we're getting Shining Fates, and there will be 14 new cards from the set, and the majority of the set's going to be reprints and fun to open and not much else. But yeah, some interesting upgrades here. The Thwackey can have free retreat if you have a stadium in play, which is nice. It's a little upgrade to the current Thwackey you could be playing. This Snom is a quick upgrade because it can help you get out a bench Pokemon, which is like just a nice thing to have. The Coughing has Ascension as well, so you can evolve straight into Galarian Wheezing much easier to establish a lock earlier on in the game and just search it out straight away. So that's a lot stronger. We've seen Ascension style effects be really, really broken for certain, walling style Pokemon in the past. Is it going to make the Rogue Galarian Wheezing much better? I mean, it makes it better, but probably still not enough to be super strong. The Rotom actually is super interesting to me as well. It has the Roto Choice ability. Once during a turn, when you play this card from your hand to your bench, you can search your deck for up to 2 item cards with Rotom in their name and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. The most important one being Rotom Phone, probably. But there's also Rotom Bike and Rotom Drone and Rotom Dex, I think. The reason why I'm kind of interested by this card is the new Mustard supporters. are only usable if you can get your hand size down to only the mustard remaining in your hand. So if you're trying to sort of make that combo work for you, having the sort of Judge Whistle Rotom Phone combo, or even just Rotom Phone plus, like a Rangaroos or Amazing Regirachi, these sorts of effects could be really big for making that combo happen. So I believe most of those decks will just straight away be playing 4 Rotom Phone. At the very least, they're insta-playables to help you get your hand lower for Mustard. So Rotom could be a one-of in that deck, just because it can scout out those phones that can then give you a sort of backdoor way into getting that Mustard turn 1 going second. If it's good enough, we'll discuss the targets that both the Mustard supporters have later on in the video. But yeah, it seemed interesting for me. I don't think we're going to start seeing engines where there are just 4 Rotom Phone and 1 Rotom Bike and 1 regular Rotom in like everyone's deck, where if you're going first, you're going to try and search out the Rotom quickly and then Rotom Phone into Rotom Bike to end your turn on that bike, to have like that pseudo turn 1 supporter. Don't think that's strong enough a lot of the time for the spaces, but yeah, it's an interesting card. Could it possibly see players like a one-of in... what decks even play a ton of Rotom Phones right now? It's like Agrozation and Colossal play a ton of Rotom Phones. That's really about it. And I don't think right now it makes it into either of those decks. But it's kind of cool. And if the Mustard engine works, the Rotom could be one of the main reasons why that works. Because, for Trainer's Mail was one of the key reasons why the Arceus Maxis was so consistent back in the day. And Rotom Phone is a close second to... Trainer's Mail, and we have a lot of synergy cards that can work alongside that, the Rotom Phone. So yeah, pretty cool. We have Ditto V and V Max. The V has Metamorphosis. Once during a turn, you may switch this Pokemon with a basic Pokemon V from your discard pile, and it has all the same effects as the new Pokemon. So however long Ditto's been in play for, etc., all the special conditions and damage that Ditto's taken goes onto the new Pokemon. This seems kind of okay, kind of niche, I would think. Also, it's not great that you have such a low raw hit points on the Ditto, so it is a bit of an easy target for the opponents, which you never really want to see. But I can see a couple of niche situations where this could be good. If you are playing a sort of toolbox attacking deck, where you play a handful of different V Pokemon, the biggest ones that stick out to my mind are the likes of Dubwool and Cramorant, where oftentimes you'll only see one copy of each of those cards, and the Ditto kind of gives you that option to, use a second Cramorant in a game if there are double Dedenne in play on your opponent's side. That could be really awesome. Whilst at the same time, you don't have to feel bad about Dedenne changing away a Dubwool, because you have a Ditto V as the fallback plan. So maybe it makes the space in those sorts of Welder Toolbox style decks as a one-of. I'm still kind of skeptical, but it's kind of the biggest thing I thought of right now. For the most part, you'll want to still just max out the line of your most important V Pokemon that you're building around before you start thinking about Ditto, because again, it's kind of squishy, which is the problem. The VMAX has 320 hit points. It's colorless, weak to fighting. And it has the max transform attack for 3 colorless. So you can choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. There's a ton of situations where you don't want this to... Well, you just don't want this attack at all. Things like Eternatus, things like Centiskorch, unless you're weldering to the Ditto. So there's a lot of situations where this isn't so great for you. The sort of upside is that you could effectively pay this cost with 3 CE. You could try and pay it with, again, welder attachment. So maybe you could be stealing some really hyper strong attacks, but for the most part, your opponent can play around this. If you're gusting things up, you can't take easy prizes because the Dennes don't have, Dedennes and Crobats don't have good enough attacks to kill themselves. So yeah, most of the time this is pretty poor. Will we ever see Ditto VMAX as like a 1-1 line in a deck that's already playing triple accelerations? Can't really think of a deck right now that would want to do that, like Snorlax VMAX or something. Probably not, even though the Ditto V has some upsides just to be in play. But yeah, the VMAX doesn't look that appealing. Same thing for the Crobat VMAX. Its attacks just don't look great. Obviously, we have a fantastic Crobat in the format, so it didn't need much for this card to at least be considered. But yeah, this guy is super far off the mark. 70 for 2, 180 for 3. Not strong enough. We're not going to start seeing Eternatus Tech Crobat VMAXs into their deck so that they're denying those easy 2-prize knockouts, I don't think. So yeah, not too much to say there. We're getting some more amazing rares as well. Reshiram, Kyogre, and Yveltal, all looking pretty okay artwork-wise, but not too great in terms of what they can do. Some people have been talking about the amazing death attack of Fire, Psychic, Dark, and 2 colorless. You just instantly knock something out. That will be pretty memey, and there will be highlight reels of it. But, you know, the attack cost is crazy, let's be real. So, yeah, nothing too much to say on those. They're mainly collector cards, I would say. There are some trainers. I was actually meant to go to the trainers first, my bad. I'll do that for the other stuff. But yeah, again, February set that we're going to be getting these. So there's the Team Yell's Cheer Towel, which heals 50 from both active. Don't think that's a strong enough effect for you. We have the Rusted Sword tool card that can be attached to any Pokemon, but if it's attached to a Zacian, you do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So effectively, it's a Leon supporter in a tool card, which is pretty strong, I would say. I'm currently playing 1 to 2 Vitality Bands in my ADP decks. And in theory, Rusted Sword is almost a strict upgrade. The only upside of Vitality Band from then on would be that you can still use it as a pseudo tool scrapper in the mirror match, because if you attach the Vitality Band, you're then counterbalancing Big Charm on Dedenes, which Rusted Sword can't do for you. So there's still maybe some reason to still play Vit Band. But the Rusted Sword means that you can then kill your opponent's ADP. So if you just gust one time with Ultimate Ray, you then can have an easy way to knock out anything that they have in play. So yeah, the Rusted Sword pushing Zacian's damage even further is pretty wacky, and maybe it's a good enough tool card that you can play aggro Zacian again and just cut out the middleman of ADP and go more aggressive with Intrepid Swords and more aggressive with just attaching and sorcering and just going turbo with the dog and trying to have possibly even like the Berserkers in the background alongside the sword to actually reach knockouts on tag teams and stuff without the help of ADP could be good enough. So yeah, Rusted Shield looks a lot less appealing. It's for Zamazenta. It's an extra 70 hit points, which is a lot, but I think Zamazenta's normally just a bit part player index. Even in Luke Metal, you probably still want to play Goggles before this. So yeah, I think the shield is way less appealing than the sword. That's actually one thing to note about this as well. Luke Metal could play this just so that you can have a better time dealing with opposing Zacians that have tools on and stuff as well. So yeah, pushing that damage output is also pretty relevant, I would say. It means that you can kill Pika-Roms now, which might make that matchup a lot better for you, actually, thinking about it just out the gates. Luke Metal can sometimes struggle against Pika because you can't knock out tag teams and it makes their Boltund really big. But now having Rusted Sword could push that matchup way more in your favor, actually, thinking about that now. There's the Supporter Ball guy, and he allows you to search your deck for 3 item cards that have Ball in their name, reveal them and put them into your hand. So this is an upgrade of Apricorn Maker, which was only 2. So it's cool to see that get the buff. There is Level Ball in the new set that we'll be looking at in a moment, which is a good item card that has Ball in its name. It's a shame that Evolution Incense doesn't have the word Ball anywhere hidden in its name, because that would have made this a much more flexible and interesting supporter, I think. So for now, I still think it's pretty niche. The one thing to bear in mind is that there is a ball juggling Galarian Mr. Rhyme. I'm not memeing with that attack name, by the way. So that could be where this guy shines, because it could be early game consistency and then mid game damage output for exactly the Ball Juggler deck. So yeah. Quick note, there is a promo Rapid Strike card, and we've actually been told that in Battle Styles we'll be getting 60 battle style cards, and we've only had from the main set 36 revealed, so possibly it's including like alternate arts and full arts and stuff of trainers and stuff, which would really be a shame, because that we've been missold information there if that's the case. Or it could be the case that we're getting this promo and possibly like another little mini promo expansion from Japan or something, I don't know, that have more Rapid Strike and Single Strike stuff that will just happen to co-align with our March release. That's what I'm really hopeful for. The Snorlax does basically nothing, though. This just, even with the Rapid and Single Strike cards that we'll look at straight away for Synergy, this just does vanilla poor damage. So yeah, just wanted to mention that. I wanted to mention that we should be getting 60 battle style cards, and it would really suck if we actually were only getting 36, and then they're counting the rest as alt arts and full arts and that sort of stuff. That would be really sad. So yeah, hopefully that's not the case. So yeah, now we will look at the singular Rapid Strike Master cards. I'm sure some of you will have already skipped to this moment right now and ignored the stuff that you've already seen, but let's go down to the trainer cards, look at those first, and get my first impressions of them. We start off with Escape Rope. Really, really awesome card. When I first saw this, I was thinking this could potentially be a nerf to ADP, because one of the biggest things that people hate about ADP is that they can't kill ADP on the turn that they GX attacked, and then they instantly lose. If they waste an attacking turn just hitting ADP and then getting knocked out with Ultimate Ray, they're really sad. But Escape Rope means they can access the opponent's bench much easier to take easier knockouts on the Dodenes that they've been spamming, the Crobats, or even just Zacian before they have energies attached to them in the early turns. So Rope could allow some of these lower damage attacking decks a lot easier ways around ADP, which I think is pretty nice to note. I think ADP could certainly still play this card itself, and a ton of cards will basically just play Rope because the card's really good. So yeah, cool to see Rope. In terms of specific synergies, could be good for some Spike Muff Spiritomb players who are trying to do aggro tomb things, damaging themselves. I don't think there's too much else that really appreciates the Rope outside of things that get trapped in the active that you just want to naturally retreat. It allows you more switches with Orbeetle, which could potentially be cool. Not too much else to be said though. Decent card. I really like Escape Rope in the format. I think it's really cool. We have the first single strike card. So single strike cards are noted up here. They're the red ones, and the rapid strike cards are the blue ones. There's going to be some internal synergy for each different sort of package. Think of it as like Plasma Pokemon or Team Magma, Team Aqua, those sorts of cards where they're all going to try and work in conjunction with one another. So bear that in mind as we talk about these. Vitality Jar allows you to choose up to 2 single strike energy cards from your discard pile, reveal them, and shuffle them into your deck. So it's a special charge for exactly the single strike energy, which we'll look at in a moment, but it's a strong energy basically for the single strikers. And there's the big Urshifu discards like energies from itself. So this is kind of the reload that you have. So I think possibly this will see play in exactly the Urshifu deck. Possibly it's just not fast enough anyway, and you just try and only use the amount of single strike energies. You play the requisite 4, and like that's all you play. You don't need any more damage mod. That's potentially also the case, so it may not be strong enough. We have Camping Gear, an item card that says, if you play this card, your turn ends. Search your deck for a card and put it into your hand. So it's a strong effect, obviously just getting anything you want. Ending your turn is obviously very bad though. So it has Rotom Bike vibes to me, which is not something that you want to have. Especially in a format with so much Marnie. It's just really slow. It's a third of a Stevens Resolve, that one. So yeah, that's kind of bad. I don't think it sees play in standard. We have Single Strike Scroll, a tool card that allows you to have access to a new attack. For 1 fighting energy, you do 10 plus 10 for each damage counter on this Pokemon. So ideally, you're going to try and put it on a tanky single striker. You get a base of 10 damage, and you also have, on top of that, any single strike energy for extra damage mod as well. So anything that's hitting you for 250 plus damage or whatever is the time to strike with the scroll. That's kind of the idea here. Which again is pretty cool because the Urshifu VMAX actually discards from itself, so maybe it works in the Urshifu VMAX deck. We have a reprint of EXP Share. It's a tool card that I've made use of in a ton of decks throughout the years. There is tool removal in the format, which you have to be a little bit annoyed about. And there's also a tool jammer tool card in this set, which can also shut down your opponent's tools, which is a shame. So again, it's kind of going to be niche, but it's a nice card to have in the format, and I'm happy to see it back. There's so much Crushing Hammer right now that having some EXP share could be good. Maybe this is just like good enough straight away, and things like Eternatus springs to mind, like Dragapult springs to mind. Some of these VMAXs that just attack for 2 energies. If you play EXP share, that can offset some more hammers in the format. And I'm always happy to see things offsetting hammers because no one likes hammers. No one likes hammers. We have a single strike supporter, Bruno, that says shuffle your hand into your deck, then draw 4. If any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, draw 7 instead. So it's a Cynthia's Feelings from the Diamond and Pearl era, but it's one less thing that you draw. I think personally this is kind of slow. We've seen that like Rosa is often too slow, and this is also reliant on your Pokemon getting knocked out, which is a problem. The Shuffle 4 is kind of weak. Just inherently, you never really want to be doing that effect to yourself. The fact that it's a single strike card actually has no relevance, I don't think, just yet. We haven't seen any tutors for single strike cards, I don't believe. I think it's only the rapid strike cards that have a tutor right now. Correct me if I'm wrong. We'll look later on. But yeah, this card probably won't see a lot of play, I don't think, unless there's some really good one prize single strike decks. I think more likely the Urshifu will be the front page single strike archetype from the top of my head, but we'll see. Possibly Bruno can prove me wrong in some single prize, single strike decks. We have the Phoebe supporter. During this turn, damage from attacks from your VMAX aren't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. This is nice. It allows us to have a wall breaking option through some annoying Pokemon. This could be just helping you through things like Zamazenta's. It can help you through Decidueyes, those sorts of things. So yeah, it's a well-timed supporter to have in the format. We have some annoying walls that I'd rather break through at times. We have Eldegoss, so this could be potentially reusable as well. So it gives us the opportunity to play, like just thick VMAX lines and not have to have some scuffed backup attacking options just so you have answers to some of these annoying wall Pokemon, which I think some archetypes have certainly been looking for a long time. Do I think Phoebe is going to immediately see a lot of play? No, not really. But again, it's an option for us, which is kind of cool. So we have the first Mustard card. This is the single strike stance Mustard. There's also, I guess, a rapid strike stance. Yeah, it says you can only play this card if it's the last card in your hand. Search your deck for a single strike Pokemon and put it onto your bench, then draw 5. So we haven't been over the single strike Pokemon just yet. First of all, I'd like to say that it's difficult to pull this off in Standard. There are a few things that we have. We have Rotomphone, Judge Whistle, Quick Ball, Electro Radar, Crobat, Dedenne. We have some good opening basic Pokemon for you, like Stellar Wish and stuff. So not out of the realms of possibility that you can turn 1 Mustard. We don't know yet if we want to, because we haven't been over the single strike attacking Pokemon. But if there is a big enough pull towards this, it's possible, but not super high odds. Also, I should mention Pokegear as a card that we also have to actually get you that Mustard straight away. And a few things like Rose Tower and stuff. There's a ton of things that can help us go up and down with our hand size. Also, this Tower of Darkness could possibly help you get there. So yeah, I think it's not too unrealistic to think we could do this turn 1 going second, above 50% of the time probably. I haven't actually done the number crunches, and I'm going to do a full video on both this guy and the other Mustard to talk about what sort of an engine I think that would look like for these decks. So if we really want to cheat out some Pokemon, we probably can. It's just if we have any good single strikers that we want to cheat out. There's plenty of reasons that you'd want to cheat things out. Obviously, just if they have really powerful abilities that you want to be spamming early. That's what we saw with Archistoise, and that's what we saw with Archeops. So there could be one of those, or possibly it could just be for a prize race kind of thing, where similar to Groudon, it was a maxi Groudon in Donphan decks, so that you Primal Groudon, I should say, so that it was just sort of sat there without having the vulnerable turn of having the lower evolution, the regular Groudon EX, in play for a turn. So this could be a way to stop, ADP players, for example, just taking an easy Gust knockout on the V before it becomes a VMAX, that sort of thing. So yeah, we'll see how that looks. We have the Tower of Darkness trainer. So that actually is. So this does actually make Bruno slightly better. The Tower of Darkness Stadium. Once during a turn, you may discard a single strike card from your hand and draw two. So this stadium alone increases the power of every single strike card that we've just mentioned, because now it can be traded away for two free cards. So the Jar that I was sort of half questioning, the Scroll that I was half questioning, the Bruno that I was half questioning. Immediately all look way better when you have the stadium that makes you go, oh hey, bin this for two free cards to allow you to cycle, which is really nice. I think overall this is just gonna allow you to thicken your Pokemon lines more than likely for the single strike the single strike decks, because then whenever you're drawing into Pokemon, you can just discard the spare ones that you don't need and draw two. And if you max out the counts, you have the highest odds of just hitting your Pokemon, which is always a good thing. So yeah, I think this stadium is bonkers. This is going to be built, like, this will be probably a 3 or 4 of in every single strike deck. The reason why you'd want to play 4 is because you can then discard your excess ones with itself. So that would be cool for draw. So yeah, bonkers stadium card, and could also help you mustard as well, even if it's just like a 2 of or something. And then we have the single strike energy, which provides dark and fighting energy, but only provides 1 at a time. And the attacks of the Pokemon this card is attached to do 20 more to your opponent's active Pokemon. So it's a strong energy that fulfills dark energy attack cost as well as fighting energy attack cost. So we're expecting the single strikers to be dark and fighting types when we look at them in a bit. So yeah. And now let's look at the synergy package for the rapid strikers, shall we? We'll jump all the way down to this side, and we'll see that we can start with the rapid strike stuff. The first one is Billowing Fan, so you can see that it's the blue outline here for the rapid stuff. Return a special energy attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon to the bottom of your opponent's deck. So effectively it's an E-Hammer, but it's tempo rather than just resource removing, if that makes sense. So it seems okay. There's a good amount of special energy probably in this format. We've just seen how good the single strike energy looks. Rapid strike energy also is pretty pog, so it's likely there's a good amount of special energy. There's already a good amount of special energy in the format with Speed Lightning, with Coating Metal, with Twin Energy even recently. So yeah, this Billowing Fan could be quite annoying for a few things. It doesn't look super powerful, but I know that this one is tutorable with Octillery, so that makes it more realistic to be like a one-of, just because you'll find niches where you can just do it at the right time. Because effects like this, the reason why you don't play them in a lot of decks is that you don't want to commit many spaces to this card, but you want to have it on specific turns. And the reason you don't play those sorts of cards is because you can't guarantee that you can hit them. But now there's a tutor that could hit this card for the right turn to make this a strong effect and a swing in a game. So yeah, that makes that cooler and more interesting. We have Energy Recycler being reprinted. Could be okay for Rillaboom decks. That's the only thing that jumps out to me. I don't think anything else needs an effect like this right now. There's a reprint of Level Ball, which allows you to search your deck for a Pokemon with 90 hit points or less and put it straight into your hand. It's a nice card. It really boosts consistency of single prize Pokemon attacking decks for the most part, because these are going to be the things with the lowest hit points. It really sucks that the engine right now is like quick balls and great balls and cross your fingers. So having potentially 8 ball search cards to allow you to get those early basics established is a good feeling. There's not a lot of decent sort of setup Pokemon with 90 hit points, except for Cincino, but that just makes Cincino way better. So at least that's good to see. Obviously, there's that Manaphy and Fion that we've just talked about. No, Manaphy and Celebi that we've just talked about. There's Jirachi Amazing Rare. There's definitely a lot of things that you might have engine-wise in here for the level ball, which is Pog. And there's also the ball juggling archetype that I'll have to mention as well. So this is obviously a good ball card for that as well. So pretty decent overall. Happy to see it. I again think most one prize attacking Pokemon, non-rule box Pokemon, are still going to be living in fear of ADP for the most part, but this is a really nice direction post-rotation, I would think. Tool Jammer is a trainer card that says, as long as the Pokemon this card is attached to is in the active spot, Pokemon tool cards attached to your opponent's active Pokemon have no effect. So you're trying to stop the effect of whatever your opponent's got. Either it's stopping, like a Big Charm, or stopping Metal Goggles, stopping things like Vitality Band, stopping that Zacian tool, the new Rusty Sword, those sorts of things. You have to be playing an archetype that doesn't need any of those tools itself in the first place, and you need to be consistent enough to actually make this work. I personally think this is probably just going to be weaker than Tool Scrapper. Tool Scrapper is almost always going to be better because Tool Jammer has to compete with other tools in play because you can only attach one tool to your Pokemon. The only upside of Jammer compared to Scrapper is that in theory it could stick around for multiple turns, whereas you could Scrapper, then your opponent could like re-establish the same tool that you just scrapped off. Or you could just research away the Scrapper before it's useful, whereas you can establish a tool Jammer, it sits on your Pokemon, and then when you bring it in, it's going to be live. So there's some interaction with the Scrapper and the Jammer there, but it still feels a little bit niche to me. It'll be interesting to see if this ever outweighs the strength of just having 30 extra hit points or doing some extra damage, you know. I think it's kind of rare to think about that right now. So there's also a scroll for the single strike, the Whirlpool scroll. For fighting and 2 colorless, you do 30 to each of your opponent's Pokemon. So every single Rapid Strike card that we look at now, we have to think that it could be the basis of a spread archetype as well, as long as you can fulfill a 3 energy attack cost, which is expensive, but yeah, not too bad. 30 to each of your opponent's Pokemon. I mean, there's a ton of Pokemon that can do that effect of an attack already in the format, and they're seeing like no play, so probably not that strong. But that said, there are some decent spreading attacks from the Urshifu VMAX, so maybe this is again just like a one-of in the Urshifu VMAX deck, because again, you can artillery it out for the moment that it's actually useful, so bear that in mind. We have Karina's Motivation, which is a Rapid Strike supporter. Draw until you have 6 cards in your hand, so this is a Bianca effect, with the minor upside of being searchable through Octillery. So I think you will probably play exactly one of if you're playing Octillery in a Rapid Strike deck, because it's a searchable supporter card, similar to how we've seen the effect of Sinlin used just as a one-of in Tag Call engines, just because there are times where you just Tag Call, grab the Sinlin, draw 3 from it, even if it's your first turn, you just use it as a draw 3. So Karina's Motivation could be useful here, just so that if you're getting hit with a reset stamp, you have Octillery in play, you can Octillery for Karina in the late game, and be happy with that. So yeah, seems okay. Here is the Rapid Strike Mustard. Reads very similarly to the fighting one, but this one's actually identical to the Archie's effect, but just for Rapid Strikers, because you also need to have that Pokemon in the discard pile. So you can only use it if it's the only card in your hand, and you have to take a Pokemon from the discard pile rather than from the deck. So the other Mustard meant that you had to discard less, whereas this one you need to not only find this supporter, but you also need to bin off the target that you want. So again, we have a decent engine to try and make this relatively consistent. It's whether or not there's any Rapid Strikers that we actually want to use this with, so we'll see. There is the Cheryl supporter card that heals all damage from each of your evolutions, then discard all energy attached to the Pokemon you healed in this way. So huge effect there, really, really huge effect. This actually makes me think the Ditto VMAX could be better, because you can use Cheryl for free if you're using triple accelerations with Ditto, which is pretty funny. But yeah, there's some, there's plenty of VMAXs that might want to take advantage of this style of effect, because those are the things with the most hit points that are evolutions, and tanking certainly is on the table for some of these. This makes Weavile much stronger in Eternatus, because you can move the energies off Eternatus and put them onto things that won't be healed by Cheryl, so that they aren't discarded. Then you can put them all back onto Eterna. So maybe it makes that deck a little more interesting, I guess, a little more combo orientated if you want to, compared to the engines that we already have. What else could take advantage of this? So basically any VMAX that you can just like reattach to. Like, this is a way stronger effect than Malolana in Center Scorch, right? Because this time you're healing all the damage off, and then you can just like, maybe not Center Scorch. That's actually wrong, because you can't attack with it again in the same turn. It's basically things that you can move energies off and onto, or something that you can power up all in one turn. Like the Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX can be triple accelerationed, so you could Cheryl and triple acceleration it that same turn and swing for 100. Are there any other VMAXs that can do that? Charizard VMAX can do that with triple acceleration. Snorlax can do it with triple acceleration. So yeah, those sorts of things I'm thinking of where you're not worried about the energies being removed. Are there any one energy attacking VMAXs that have good one energy attacks? Oh, the new Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX has that as well, where you can do 180. 150 for one. So Cheryl is good for that. So essentially, it's hyper pog for the VMAXs, I would say. There's also the Tower of Waters Stadium for the Rapid Strikers. The stadium reduces the retreat cost of Rapid Strikers by 2, which is really nice because the Urshifu Rapid Strike wants to move in and out of the active position, so that's cool. And it just gives you a pivot throughout the game as well, which is really nice. And the Rapid Strike energy looks incredible. It is a water fighting energy, and it provides both. So it's basically a double rainbow, which is really, really good for water and fighting, which is going to cover all of your single strikers, which is pretty epic. So let's jump back up to the top and talk about some of these cards and appreciate some artwork as well. When there's not much to say, you know I love to show off some artwork. There's actually been some amazing artwork in this set. The first card worth talking about for its text is Durant. It's a 90 hit point basic grass Pokemon. 90 is now a much more relevant number to keep in your frame of mind because level ball is a thing, which is cool. And it has the Devour attack. For each Durant in play, discard the top card of your opponent's deck. So you can have 4 Durants in play, you can discard 4 each turn. As long as ADP is in format, I think this won't be strong enough because you will never have enough turns to devour your opponent's deck. We do have some good disruptive combos in the format. We have Galar Mine plus Boss's Orders. We have Crushing Hammers and some other energy removal style supporters. I still think Durant will be too slow. It was decent in a format where there weren't like multiple prize Pokemon that can hit a ridiculous number. There were times in the old era of Durant where you could devour and actually expect to survive if you put an Eviolite on, and that will never happen in current standard format with these Durants. Also, the old Devour deck only required basic energy, whereas this requires 2 colorless, which is horrific. Even with energy acceleration from Chirin or the twin energies that you can play, that's still really, really bad for you. We have nothing that can interact with prize cards either, so if you just prize a Durant, you lose the game. So yeah, this is going to be really poor, I think. Could it potentially be an include in like an Excadrill style deck, just as like that late game kind of thing where you're going between rototillering and weaving in the Devour attack just by playing like 2 Durants in your deck, and you like bird keep it in and out of Durant between turns, like Durant and Excadrill, to sort of speed up the mill process, possibly, but I don't think it's really worth the spaces. But it could create some more proactive mill. I just think it's not good right now. We have a Scatterbug doing nothing. We're looking at artwork right now, to be honest. I always like to have my first impression of artwork at the very least. We have the first V and VMAX to look at. There's Flapple, a 190 hit point grass type V, weak to fire, yikes. It has the Sour Saliva attack for a grass, you do 20. During your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon's attacks is 2 more. There's so many switching outs in the format, that's not going to be relevant, and if you're attacking into anything that's a setup Pokemon, you're really sad. And 120 for grass 2 colorless, that's nothing. We've got the VMAX, which looks ridiculous. Look at that. 320 hit points. It has the G Max Roll attack, which is 150 minus. We haven't seen a minus attack in a while. This attack does 10 less for each damage counter on this Pokemon, so it's the same as the Vileplume that had the minus recently, right? But yeah, this is obviously terrible attack text. Essentially, if you get hit, you become useless, even if you don't die, which is great. And you're weak to fire, and you cost 3 energy to attack. You are a big beam. Okay. We have some nice artwork on Entei. We have some Rapid Strike stuff going on here. So we've got Tepig. We've got Pignite, which is possibly my favourite artwork from this set. It reminds me of Spirited Away, where the parents become pigs because they're eating so much. And this is the same tree stump where we see the alt art Tyranitar. So Pog with the artwork there. Remember, all of these cards could be just trade bait for the stadium. So That gives these cards some upside. They all have vanilla text, but you can pretend they have an ability that says, if you have a stadium in play, discard it and draw 2, which is kind of cool. And we've already seen this Emboar in the trailer. The trailer is really cool as well for this set. It actually got me pretty hyped for the stuff. It's a 180 hit point stage 2. Fighting Fury stance is the ability. Your single strike Pokemon's attacks do 30 more to your opponent's active. That's big damage. Is it worth mustarding this into play? Maybe. Depends how much the breakpoints of damage are for the Urshifus and how much VMAXs are in the format. I believe Urshifu single strike does like 270, and you already have single strike energies that can make you kill basically every tag team and basically out of range of every VMAX. So possibly mustarding Emboar is the way that you kill VMAXs, and then that's your win condition against the bigger stuff. So I guess that's the theory. I would never regularly evolve the Emboar. I'm only thinking about this ability as potentially worthwhile as a mustard option. Is it that easy to make mustard work in a deck that's already playing a thick stage 1 line in the Houndoom as well as the Urshifu VMAX? Probably not. So I think that would make you much less likely to play the Emboar altogether. We have a Pog artwork on the Salandit. You love to see that. And we also have an interesting stage 1 Salazzle. It's a 90 hit point, very good. Fire type, stage 1, that has 2 attacks. The first is Perplex, just to confuse for a fire, but for 2 colorless or a twin energy or a 3 CE. You do 90 for each special condition affecting your opponent's active Pokemon, which is pretty decent. Really, really good multiplier. 90 times is strong. It means that if you get 3 down on them, you're doing 270. And the main status that we're going to try and hit them with is from a Weeping Bell, which is Poison and Burn, which is good because those are the ones that have counters rather than rotations, because then it means you can cheer Yellhorn and have 3 on at any time. And also Poison and Burn pushes you up to 300 damage. So the dreamer option of Salazzle is when you go Yellhorn, get into Salazzle so that you're not flipping a coin yourself, and then using a Weeping Bell so your opponent's affected by 3 things. You hit for 300 for a Twin Energy or whatever. That's some big dreamer damage. It's going to feel to me like similar to Baby Blounds in that you'll have some big power spike turns that get really threatening and dangerous, but there'll be plenty of turns where you'll sort of just not be doing much or just doing some setup damage instead. Is this one prize deck going to be strong enough? Just because it can do that, and because this is called Salazzle, so you can have Salazzle as the draw engine on the bench at the same time as well and have a split between the two? Maybe. Maybe. A definite maybe for that. I also like this as a fire type. Fire typing is Pog, so we like that. We like that a lot. And yeah, maybe you just don't play Twin Energy at all in this deck. You just play Fire Energies, Crystals, like a split of the Salazzles, and then have Welder still. Who knows? We'll see. We have Electabuzz, great artwork on this. Look at that. You love to see that. And the Electiviolet's cool as well. Not much else to say about the about the attacks. But yeah, we have Tapu Koko V. It's a 210 hit point lightning type V Pokemon that has a vanilla 1 for 40, and it also has Spiral Thunder that does 20 plus 40 for each energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. So this could be dangerous in a mirror match situation against fellow Pikarom players, because most people are trying to build toward Bolton doing swings, and maybe if you incorporate E-Switch in a higher count into your deck, you can punish them with a Koko V bop kind of thing. Is there anything else that really floods the board of energy aggressively? So your opponent ADP can put 6 into play quite often. 6 forces 240, 250, 260, which isn't really enough. So even after ADPs put 6 energies into play, you still can't one-shot them. So probably just not good enough. Probably just a bit too niche for me. But it's a reasonable attack. And there's then the VMAX that has 320 hit points, and it has the max shock attack for lightning colorless. You do 180. If you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent's active is paralyzed. I think this just isn't as strong as Raichu probably. There's the other Tapu Koko V, which has free retreat and spike draw and stuff, so maybe that's the one that you would play, or a split or whatever, but this just feels worse than playing Raichu and Pikarom in general. Here's a little Yamper, which is nice. 60 hit points, basic, that has the ability Fetch the Ball. Once during your turn, you can put this onto your bench and grab a Pokeball and a Great Ball from your discard pile into your hand. So I was hoping when we saw Level Ball that we wouldn't have to play Great Ball in our decks anymore, but Yamper's giving us a potential reason to, and it's giving us a reason to play Pokeball. Oh no. Pokeball's interesting though, actually, when you can Yamper it as well, because then you basically have to think of Pokeballs as like timables that are universal. It makes you think they're a lot better if you play like a heavy Yamper kind of thing. Obviously normal decks won't be doing this. This is exactly for the ball juggling deck where it's recovering damage for you. I would think you can Yamper and scoop up net the Yamper to get back a ton of damage for your Galarian Mr. Rhyme, which is really cool. And at the same time, if you really have to, you can use those ball search cards to try and hit your next Mr. Mime or your next Mr. Rhyme, etc. So yeah, Yamper plus Galarian Rhyme is the combo. This isn't a good enough card in any other deck. Boltund, if it's damaged, you can do 130 for 1 lightning, but who cares? We've got Galarian Slowpoke doing stuff. We've got Spoink. Got some great art. This Grumpig artwork, look at that. Incredible. There's some great art going on right now. I love Kamiya artwork. Incredible. Chimecho coming in, not doing much. Love to see the artwork though. We've got some artwork. The Meowstic. Once during a turn, you can move 1 damage counter from one of your Pokemon to one of your opponents. This isn't worth putting a stage 1 into play. We have a Mimikyu V, which until I saw Escape Rope, I was really interested in. It's a Psychic type V Pokemon with 160 hit points, which isn't a lot, but it does have the ability Dummy Doll. Once during a turn, when you play this from your hand onto your bench, until the end of your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. So a free turn of immunity is really, really exciting. It has a 1 Psychic Energy attack as well that does 3 counters on your opponent's active for each prize card your opponent has taken. So the idea being, especially in some like 1 prize style decks, I was thinking straight off the bat something like the Whimsicott archetype. You can just have a ton of 1 prize Pokemon in play. You're already playing Psychic Energies, and there's that point in the game where you can drop down the Mimikyu V, Dummy Doll, and attach that Psychic, and you effectively get that free like 150 damage for 1 attachment, and they can't deal with the Mimikyu, so they have to gust and just take an individual 1 prize. Then you can come back in with the Mimikyu and finish things off with the same attack straight away. So it forces that boss play. In the worst case scenario, they rope boss and then they kill the Mimikyu and then your ability's been foiled. But other than that, I think this is I think this is a really strong effect, actually. This could even be a strong effect in Dragapult, possibly as well. Give you that little turn of relief sometimes. Maybe it's just good enough to be like, okay, it's time to stamp Dummy Doll. Hopefully this is how I get my free 150 or so damage or more. It's kind of what Raichu does, right? They try and just go, okay, I'll have my turn of immunity through paralysis, as well as at the same time as putting my opponent to a low hand size or whatever. So, yeah, Mimikyu functionally will work very similarly to Raichu, I would think. There's a few things that can foil this. Obviously, if you get like Fion bossed, Fion Cramoranted, Rope boss, those sorts of things, makes you very sad. Rope Cram, those sorts of things. Does Rope even work? It does, right? Or I think it has to come back into the active. I can't remember the ruling on it. Maybe pushing it to the bench is enough. I can't remember. But yeah, Rope bringing it back in definitely resets this, right? So yeah, but the effect of the attack is really strong. I like it a lot. I'm gonna try building around the Mimikyu. Are there any other psychic attacking decks? Oh, it could even be a one-of tech in Mewtwo. Exciting card. I like it. All right, we have some single strike stuff. We've got Mankey and Primeape. Pretty epic looking Primeape with the artwork there. 120 hit points fighting type that has Field Crush, 20 in discard a stadium, and Frenzy Bomb does 50 for each of your bench Pokemon with any damage counters on them. So you can try and build this with Donphan or with Spiritomb. Houndoom as well. By attaching energies, it also damages the Pokemon that it attaches to for 2 energy. And that allows you to shoot out single strike energy cards. So I guess that would be your main acceleration. We have Karate Belt as well. So that would kind of be what you're trying to do here. Damage your own stuff, maybe even just like Spike Muff, something like that on your own guys, and have a 50 multiplier. 50 multiplier is strong, to be fair. This is going to be hitting pretty hard quite a lot. It's just how much setup it is. It feels like too much setup for my taste. But its damage will scale well, and its typing is strong. There's some stuff to like here. It's probably going to fall short of the mark because it's not consistent enough, obviously. But seems okay. And don't forget that you have that stadium that's broken that can help you draw a bunch more cards. The only problem with relying on that stadium is that Swell is already a really good card in the format. But yeah, another interesting fighting Pokemon in the mix, which is cool. We have Gligar hovering over some fields. We've got Gliscor being a little gargoyle man, not doing much text-wise. We've got Rolly Crowley crying in a cave. We've got Carcol going crazy. You'll love to see that. We've got a Colossal. There's been a ton of Colossals printed. This one does 90 for each energy attached to this guy on a coin flip, which is embarrassing to evolve into a stage 2 and then have to start flipping coins to at least do 90 at a time. You don't want to see that. Stonejourner is vanilla text, but he's giving something the old boot. Oh, it's a single striker. Yeah, the damage mod doesn't matter, and the fact that you can accelerate to it doesn't matter. So Urshifu and Urshifu VMAX are the main selling points, supposedly, of the single strike deck. So the things that we have to bear in mind is that you can mustard, theoretically, this out if we want to. We haven't seen Houndoom yet, which is the main accelerator. But we know that it has damage mod from potentially M-Ball and potentially those special energy cards. So a lot of support there, and we know that we can draw a bunch with those stadiums as well. So the single strike Urshifu V has 220. It's a fighting type. It has laser focus. Search your deck for up to 2 fighting energy and attach them to this Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. So as long as you're not getting one shot, so if you choose to go second with this deck, you laser focus. As long as you're not getting one shot immediately, it means that you can go straight into that VMAX and do a GMAX one blow, which would be really strong. Impact blow does 180, and you can't use that next turn. That's not super relevant, but I like the fact that against slower things, like against ADP, if you just go second, you can just laser focus, then immediately you're threatening big damage. That's really cool to see. And there'll be a lot of things that can't deal 220 turn 2 very effectively. There'll be a ton of situations as well where you can't laser focus because you're up against more tempo heavy decks, which would be awkward. But we can live with that. And then there's Urshifu VMAX. It is weak to Psychic, which is a bit of a problem because current tag team decks can start just teching in Mewtwo if they want to. And at the same time, there's Mad Party around and Whimsicott also around. So there's a few potential issues for Urshifu VMAX. It is a 330 hit point dude. He has that beatdown attack. For 3 colors, you do 100. I actually really like this attack because it's not as much resources as the Gmax one blow. In theory, you can play a couple triple accelerations if you want to. 100 doesn't sound great, but when you're bossing up Crobats and bossing up Dedennes, it feels a lot better. So this could be an easy way to cheese some damage. We have that new Cheryl card as well, so maybe there'll be like Cheryl plus triple accelerations going on in here, so that you can like beat down and heal and beat down and heal kind of thing. That could be an option for a tanky Urshifu thing going on. It feels better to me straight away than Colossal, which is cool. Just for the beatdown option and gusting. Similar to how Colossal tries to do the same thing with its early attack and gust at the same time. Gmax one blow does 270 for fighting, colorless. Discard all energy from this Pokemon. And it also wall breaks, which is nice. So I like that it wall breaks. That's really good. And any like reduction your opponent's trying to do into your damage is going to be ignored as well. 270, really good number. This can be pushed by Dojo, but you'll probably play the other stadium instead. Probably. I would think you'd play the single strike stadium instead. More than likely. But maybe you play a split with Dojo and let yourself go behind in just one bop of VMAX. But yeah, you can push with Houndoom and single strike energy. you can, in theory, push with a Mustard into Emboar on the bench as well. I think this is probably... I mean, the fact that you discard all energy from yourself means that you probably do have to play Triple Acceleration. So, like, you do a big Gmax 1 blow, then you Cheryl 3CE, or you 3CE and Boss's Orders something up whilst using Houndoom on your next Urshifu VMAX on the bench for 2 turns. Or like, if you have 2 Houndoom in play, in theory, you could, like, Houndoom to the benched one whilst 3CEing the active and taking an easy, like, boss prize. I can see how this works, to be fair. If you just play the single strike energies, a thick Houndoom, this, and some 3CEs as well. I was thinking, like, when I first saw this, I was like, you're never going to be able to Gmax 1 blow enough times, but maybe with the help of Laser Focus against enough slow decks, and the help of Houndoom, and 3CE being a good enough turn, if you can do it with Great Catcher, or with Cheryl, or with Boss, maybe it's just good enough. It'll be a weird deck to build, to be honest, but I don't think it's that bad. I think the biggest issue for these sorts of decks is that it's weak to Psychic, to be honest, and you can't play Weak Guard because you discard all energy from yourself anyway, so yeah, that's the biggest thing I'm afraid of. Psychic is a really good type still in the format, so yeah. But this seems okay. I think Rapid Strike is better, but this one's fine as well. It's the Big Believer build. We have a Dark Line of Crobat. The Golbat comes into play and draws you 2 cards, and the Crobat comes into play and draws you 3 cards and has free retreat. These are dark types, so you can think about them in Eternatus if you want to. I don't think these are strong enough for Eternatus, personally. So I'll be ignoring them, but they are an option. A potential stamp, like extra stamp proofing mechanism for you. Obviously, you have to like draw into these cards, but you only have a finite number of Crobat Vs, so once those are used up, you don't have much else going for you. So now if you have some Golbats chilling on the bench, it means that any Crobat or like Great Ball that you draw into probably can help you get into game with the Eternatus, which is nice. And having a free retreat pivot isn't bad as well, naturally. Artwork on Galarian Slowbro, look at that. That's enough said on that card. We've got a Honchkrow, not doing much for us. Here's the Houndoom that I keep talking about. So Houndour, amazing artwork. What's going on there? Why is he doing the heavy lifting? There's so many. Think about all the single strike cards that we've seen so far. Out of all of those, you made the Houndour do this. I mean, come on. But here's the Houndoom. It's a 130 hit point dark type single striker. It has single strike raw. Once during a turn, search your deck for a single strike energy and attach it to one of your single strike Pokemon. Then shuffle your deck, and if you attached any energy to a Pokemon in this way, put 2 counters on that Pokemon. So there are some downsides to spamming Houndoom because you put yourself in range of a ton of attacks. Like this going down to 290 isn't the most awkward, but it means that you would fall prey to a Sworded-zation or some Zigzagoon Ping Eternatus plays and a few things like that. So you don't really want to spam the Houndoom too much. It feels like you'd much rather in the early turns go for like Laser Focus into your first Gmax 1 blow and then like have the Houndoom building a benched one up for you. But I think you basically always have to play the Houndoom alongside Urshifu. I don't feel like you can play this on its own. It's never going to get to the 1 blow enough, even with early Laser Focus. But yeah, it's good acceleration. Acceleration from deck is awesome, and it makes that jar look a lot better because you can shuffle them into the deck and immediately pull 2 outs with double Houndoom, which is cool. So yeah, strong ability. It's not the easiest to search out, unfortunately. So you probably have to play a 4/4 line of this and a 4/4 line of the Urshifu VMAX, but it is what it is. The good news is having that redundancy means that when you are drawing your 3rd and 4th copies of these cards, that when you've already got the 2/2 line in play, you can start chucking them away with the Stadium. That's kind of the good news for you. So they're all, again, they have like half abilities as well, which is cool. There's the Tyranitar V. Never play with this one, only play with the alt art because it's way cooler. This has 230 hit points as a dark type. Cragalanche does 60 and discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. So that 60 isn't really much of the story when you could be Houndooming straight to this guy. Much easier to be getting in that 100 range, which is still terrible damage. Single Strike Crush does 240, and you discard the top 4 cards of your deck, which isn't great. The 4 energy attack cost is expensive, even with Hydreigon, even with Houndooms doing their business. That's not great. Its damage output is really solid, though. The single strike energy is buffing that quite a lot, but yeah, not all that useful, I don't think. You probably just want to play Urshifu. There's a Morpeko that's munching on some apples. We've got a single strike Mawile that isn't doing much. Again, even with the damage mods, it's not doing a lot. There's a Bronzong, which allows you to move metal energies around how you like. So it's an Aromatisse effect, or a Kling Clang effect if you're going further back, for metal energy, which is really cool. And it's as often as you like. I think this is potentially dangerous for some. So, like I was saying with Cheryl, actually, with the Weavile, now metal Pokemon can do the same thing. So does this make the likes of Copperaja, Sizzle, Corviknight, and what's the other metal VMAX that I'm forgetting? There's definitely one. Can't remember it. Can I? H-Slash. H-Slash, there you go. All of those are potentially Cherylable alongside Bronzong, which is Pog. So yeah, some tanky metal VMAX potential. And metal is a great thing to tank with because it has coating metal energy. So yeah, you'll love to see that Bronzong build around potentially for some tanky VMAX Cheryl things going on. Really happy that there's no max pot in the format because that makes these sorts of effects really, really strong. Also, of course, you can try and play an Aurora energy style attacking box with Bronzong as well. We've seen a ton of Aromatisse, Aurora energy kind of decks, or Rainbow Aromatisse at the time. So some Rainbow energy attacking, move your energies around kind of deck could work as well. So yeah, interesting. We'll see how that works. There's got to be some big brains working on that as we speak. More artwork to talk about. I'm a big fan of the Aegislash line, but the cards unfortunately completely suck. This one can block out VMAXs, but who cares? We've got some artwork appreciation on these guys. We've got Licky Tongue going on. We've got Licky Licky. Look at okay, yeah, okay. Don't worry. We've got a Stoutland V. It's a 2/10 colorless attacking V Pokemon that has the 3 energy attack cost, second bite for 40, which sounds terrible. But then you read, if the defending Pokemon is knocked out by damage from this attack, take 1 more prize card. So that's pretty cool. This could be a part of the sort of Ditto V combination where you play like Porygon box and you have Stoutland, Cramorant, and Double all in your deck, and you're trying to shenanigan your way around him. Stoutland as well can obviously be Welder attached onto, and there's some really nice math there where you can hit for 230 with Reshizard, and then you're 40 away on a ton of tag teams, which you can then second bite to kill. Stoutland V obviously can be used with powerful Colorless Energy as well to buff his damage output even further. So yeah, I think Stoutland is not too shabby. I wouldn't sleep on this guy. I think there'll be times where he is like the only win condition and you'll be frustrated that they got into that Stoutland and just finish you off for a little 40 poke and it was enough. But yeah, that's okay. And then 4 energy for 230 to self, not that relevant. I think the first attack is the most relevant, and it'll be surprisingly effective, I would imagine. And I'll try and build around it for sure. We've got Dramper for artwork, not much else. And then we will jump down to the Pokemon for the Rapid Strike. This has gone on for a long time. Here's the here's the artwork of the Bellsprout. Look at that. You love to see it. And there's the Weeping Bell. Again, it has less than 90 hit points, so you can play Quick Balls and Level Balls in your Salazzle deck, which is awesome. And it has the Dangerous Slime ability that leaves your opponents active, burned, and poisoned. So that's going to be the engine going on, where you're trying to spam Scoop Up Net with this guy and the other thing to Salazzle for a bunch of damage. That's the idea. We've got the Victory Bell, not doing much to help out. We've got Kricketune V, which is a very interesting basic 180 hit point grass type that has the ability Stage Elation. Once during your turn, you may draw until you have 3 cards in your hand. If this is in the active spot, you may draw until you have 4 in your hand. And you can't use this if you've already used it. So it's a one-time use, but a really, really strong ability. It's kind of the mixture of Oranguru, and it reminds me of Slurpuff as well, because it draws an extra card when it's in the active. It's only got one retreat, so you can air balloon or U-turn board quite happily. It's got the vibes of Oricorio as well, where basically you're trying to use this to help yourself out against reset stamps and that sort of thing. Interestingly, you can have this in play alongside an Oricorio, so even if you're getting stamped to 1, you can still be drawing for turn, and then playing down those cards in theory, and then drawing 4, and then drawing 3 more from Oricorio. So you can basically draw like your whole deck straight after getting stamped to 1, which is funny. Again, it's that 180 hit points, so it is a fragile guy, and there are it's also got that awkward fire weakness, which is still awkward, obviously, for easy prizes for those fire type guys, but it seems reasonable. I've loved playing Oranguru in a ton of aggressive decks in the past. Kricketune has a bigger downside to Guru, because obviously it's a target that they'll try and take a lot more often. But yeah, it's comparable to Oricorio. Sometimes it'll feel better, sometimes it'll feel worse, depending on the deck. But yeah, it seems nice for that regard. Its attack isn't strong enough, 80 and coin flip for 80 more for 3, not strong, but the ability makes it interesting for sure. We've got a Cherim, which has the ability Spring Bloom. As often as you like during a turn, you can attach a grass energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon, except Pokemon with a rule box. So any one prize Pokemon can get flooded with grass energy from hand from just a stage 1. So this is similar to a Frostmoth, but instead of having the caveat of being to the bench only, it's to 1 prizes only. There's a Tapu Bulu from the set that can take advantage of this. There's Maractus currently in the format that does a 60 times multiplier on coin flips. And we do have Glimwood Tangle in the format. There's also a Kartana that can coin flip to leave your opponent with 10 remaining hit points. Again, you've got Glimwood for that. So there's a few single prize targets for the Cherim right now. I think it'll more than likely just be Rogue. A few upsides of the Cherim is that you can turf field. So if you are playing one of those sorts of decks, you can quite quickly get the Cherim into play. You could also just play this as like a 1-1 line in a dedicated like Decidueye deck, so you're not just losing to hammers and that sort of thing, which is potentially okay. So yeah, Cherim seems pretty good. Carnivine is a rapid striker, but not really good enough. And the random single strikers are way better than the random rapid strikers, because the random single strikers can draw you 2 cards, whereas these ones can't do anything. We've got some artwork to look at. We're doing this in substitution for talking about terrible cards. Here's the Bulu. It can do push down for 1 for 20, and your opponent switches. And for grass colors, you can do 80. Discard all if you want to. And if you do, you do an additional 80. 160 for 3. Not too bad. It's a good breakpoint of damage. Obviously good into Dedenne, which is nice. And you can try and spam this with Cherim. So Cherim Bulu, an out-the-box deck that we can play from the set, which is kind of reasonable as a 1-prize deck, so that's okay. We've got Victini V and VMAX. I'm really excited about these cards. The Victini V has competition already from the previous Victini, which is actually a really, really good card, and I think it's better than this one. But this one might still have some utility. 190 hit points. It has V-Bullet, does 10. If your opponent's active as a V, 50 more damage, which is actually... I mean, it's not super relevant, to be honest, with the damage you're trying to do with the VMAX, but it can be a little bit of a prod if you really want to. And for fire colors, you do 120 and discard all energy from this Pokemon. More often than not, the other Victini V will be doing a similar amount of damage for 2 energies. It does 30 for each energy attached to both Pokemon. And the other Victini can also attach from the discard pile with Spreading Flames. So this one probably going to be either a 1 or 0 count in the Victini VMAX deck. But Victini VMAX looking really nice. 310 hit points is low, but you can offset that with Heat Fire Energy. It has Spreading Flames, which can again attach energies from your discard pile if you're really in a pinch and have nothing else going on. And it means that you can always have a chance against Hammer decks, which is nice, because you have this attack on the basic as well as the VMAX, which is kind of cool. And then you have Victory Max for fire colorless. You do 100. If your opponent's active as a V, 100 more damage. And this V should encompass VMAX as well, just like how we've seen that text of V, meaning that you can't scoop up a VMAX, for example. So yeah, 220 for 2 into most things is really nice. Obviously, it's pretty poor into the GXs that are still in the format, but as we move to post-rotation, I think this will probably be the best Fire VMAX out there. Obviously, Centiskorch will lose Welder, which loses all of its burst potential, because we also lose Volcanion at the same time. So this Victini VMAX will be not great immediately, but as soon as rotation hits, this will be the strongest VMAX that we have access to for the Fire archetype for sure, because you don't need to play Welder for this deck to be good. We'll be hitting into a ton more V Pokemon then, obviously, because the meta will be dominated by them. 220 is enough to be two-shotting VMAXs comfortably, and one-shotting Vs comfortably as well, for the most part. So, yeah, this Victini VMAX is probably not going to start off too expensive, but I know I'm going to be picking up 4 of this and buy some more of the previous Victini Vs, because it feels nutty to me post-rotation. This card's going to be insane. Pre-rotation, though, probably useless, which is sad times. We've got a Heatmore with some strange dimensions. I didn't know that was the dimensions of Heatmore, but there we go. We've got a Sizzlipede with some great artwork, and a Centiskorch that can keep things burnt, but not super relevant. We've got some more great artwork. Horsey chilling out. We've got Seadra getting caught by a Super Rod. We've got a Kingdra. It's a 150 hit point stage 2 that has Lord of the Ocean Depths ability. When your active Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, you may choose any number of water energy attached to that Pokemon and move them to this Pokemon. Really, really strong ability. It's kind of like a Wishful Baton, but in reverse. Yeah, it keeps the energy around the entire game in theory. As long as you have a Kingdra into your next Kingdra, you can keep every energy that you attach throughout the game and everything that you Frostmoth throughout the game, like, in play. Now, the problem is that you need to always have Kingdras in play for that, for those to not hit the discard pile, but we can work with that. And the attack is Aqua Burst. For just 1 water, you do 40 times the number of water attached to this Pokemon. So you can see what's trying to go on here. You're trying to play Kingdra, Frostmoth, get as many always have not only 1 Kingdra, but 2 Kingdras in play throughout the entire game. And if you can do that, your Aqua Burst just grows and grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. Problem is, obviously, it's hard enough trying to get 1 Kingdra out, let alone 2. So good luck trying to always have this ability online. Yeah, going to be really hard. Good luck. We have the Mr. Rhyme that I've mentioned a few times. Let's look at the artwork of this guy. Slipping over on some ice. You love to see it. For 2 colorless, you do 10 plus 40 for each ball card that you've thrown into the discard from your hand. So kind of reminiscent of Baby Lounge. Instead of fire energies, you get rid of Ball Search cards. Instead of a 50 multiplier, it's a 40, so there's a bit of a downside there, but you much prefer having Ball Search cards than energy cards. Now, Fire Crystal made fire energy pretty broken, but in general, in opening hand situations, you'd much prefer to have Ball Search cards, because you're getting on the board and getting into play and getting your setup going, which is way cooler. So I think Galarian Rhyme is actually quite promising. It's a twin energy and triple acceleration energy style attacker, and its multiplier is reasonable. Its typing is also reasonable right now. And yeah, we have Level Ball, we have Great Ball, we have Quick Ball, we have Pokeball, and yeah, we have good old Yamper and Scoop Up Net to try and recycle it. We have Ball Guy to try and get them out of the deck really quick. Yeah, pretty decent, I think. It's going to struggle with all the same things that, like, the Mad Partiers and the other current one-prize decks do in the format, but seems decent. Seems decent. It's also going to be kind of bad against, like, Reset Stamp and that sort of thing. You know the drill. Similar to Blounds, how it's trying to do things all in a big combination and have big power spike turns. But there we go. We have awesome art. Look at there's some great artwork in this set, like, unironically, really awesome artwork. This definitely, I think this is my favorite Remoraid that I've ever seen printed. Amazing artwork on the Remoraid. And yeah, it's a single striker, a rapid striker, which is really good because Octillery can then tutor this card out. So Octillery can get you on next Remoraid, then can get you double Octillery the next turn, which is really cool. So that's something to bear in mind, because Octillery seems to be a good rapid strike card. I'm not certain that you're going to play Octillery in the deck. It does give you a lot of flexibility. So the reason why I like the Octillery is that it stamp proofs you quite well, because you can always get Karina if you want to. It can also then open up your deck to play that Rapid Strike Fan, and it can guarantee access to the Special Energy, which is also a really good build around. So it's likely that you'll be playing Octillery, probably in a thinner line than you would the Houndoom, because the Houndoom wants to have multiple in play at all times, and you can always use the Stadium to discard the excess, whereas the Octillery can search out the next pieces to the Octillery in the first place. So you could get away with a 3-2 line or a 2-2 line much more reasonably with the Rapid Strike deck. And I think it's just versatile enough. The fact that it can get the special energy and the Karina is really the biggest things, I think. So in theory, it's kind of similar to having Abyssal Hand on board, because you can Strike Search to get the Karina if ever you're getting stamped low. That's kind of the main idea here. And obviously it can help tutor out your Pokemon as well throughout the entire game if you're looking for Urshifu VMAXs throughout and stuff. So I think he's just about reasonable enough to be the engine, but I'm also theory crafting Rapid Strike builds that don't play him, so just bear that in mind. He's not like guaranteed to go in, because at the end of the day, he's still multiple stage 1s in the deck. And, you know, Crobat and Dedenne are still some pretty good cards, I think. We have artwork to talk about, of course. These aren't actually that great. Okay. We do have Empoleon V, 210 hit point water type Rapid Striker. Again, like I said with Tyranitar, play the Alt Art because it's Hyper Pog instead. The ability is Emperor's Eyes. As long as this Pokemon is your active, your opponent's basic Pokemon in play have no abilities except for the ones with rule boxes. So it's basically just a grief to Snorlax, a grief to Jirachi, Celebi, and Manaphy, and like Fiona and that sort of stuff. So I don't think it's worth griefing because those abilities aren't hugely played in at least the top archetypes, because the rule box Pokemon, the Crobat, the Dedenne, the Intrepid Sword, those abilities are all still live, so you're not really blocking a lot. You have a 2 retreat cost, but that can be mitigated by the Stadium, which is nice. You're weak to Lightning, which sucks, at least in the short term. Swirling Slice does for water and 2 colorless 130, and you move an energy from this to one of the bench. I don't think that early damage is super relevant, at least relevant enough to try and build around the Empoleon. Like, you're not going to play Quad Empoleon ever, because the damage output's not good, and it's weak to Lightning. And if you're going to play this in an Urshifu VMAX, it's kind of just like more steps for you. Yeah, so I think he's probably just not strong enough, to be honest. But coming to my favorite artwork in this set. Are you ready? Look at that. Look at that. Come here, you genius. Okay. Unfortunately, it's completely useless. Then we have my least favorite artwork of the set. One of my least favorite designed Pokemon of all time. We have some Rapid Strike Pokemon. We've got a Shinx climbing down the stairs, which is cool. We've got a Luxio looking nice. And we've got a Luxray. Again, really awesome artwork on the Luxray. Very cool detail there. It's a Rapid Striker. It's got Electric Slide. For 1 Lightning, you do 40 to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Then switch this with one of your bench. And you've got Scar Beat for 100 for Lightning colorless. Your opponent's active Pokemon, or if they have any damage counters already on it, 100 more damage. So 200 for 2, it's efficient, but it's a stage 2, and it has extra requirements on top of that, so that's a bit of a problem, I would say. We've got artwork appreciation for a little bit longer. I don't think there's too many more cards that are super interesting from this set. Maybe I'm wrong. There's still the Urshifu that we need to talk about. The Clay Doll allows you to equal the amount of energy in play that your opponent has, but you're never going to spend an attack on that. We've got a Necrozma V, 220 hit point Psychic type that has Prism Ray, 20 to the active and 2 of your opponent's bench for 1 Psychic is fairly efficient setup damage. For Psychic colors, you do 100. If this guy has a special energy attached, 120 more damage. So again, 220 for 3, not too bad. We don't have great psychic acceleration right now, which is a problem. Anything else to say on this? I mean, we have good special energy for him, which is good. He's got a colorless in there as well, so he could, in theory, use things like Capture, which is nice. I just don't think we can accelerate to him enough and keep him attacking. 220, not bad math, but not quite enough, even with the help of Mystery Energy. So yeah, just falling short of the line there. We've got an Orbeetle, which I know some people are interested in. It's a stage 2 with 110 hit points. That's so low. It's got Evo control for colorless. For each energy attached to this guy, search a deck for a stage 2 Pokemon and put it onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. So in theory, you can triple acceleration Orbeetle and you can get 3 stage 2s out all in one go. But the reason why stage 2s don't work is because they're slow, and spending a turn to hit your candy combo just to get more Pokemon into play, not worth it. So this card is terrible. Feels bad. Awesome Onyx artwork. I really enjoy that. And we've got Cubone holding on to his little club, and we've got Marowak as well. Some nice artwork going on there. 2 times 90 coin flips, not too great there. We got Timber building a house, Gerda doing some stuff, Conkeldurr, don't know what he's up to. We've got some more Rapid Strike cards. We've got the Mienfoo. Again, enjoy the artwork on that in the background's the little dojo. You've got Mienshao, which we've seen in the trailer again, so we've got it in English. It's a 90 hit point fighting type. Spinning Whip does for fighting colorless or just 1 Rapid Strike energy, 90, and leave your opponent's active confused. Shuffle this Pokemon and all cards back into your deck. So you can try and do this with Dolls, have your opponent confused, but it's come out in the format where Rope is in, Birdkeeper's in, Switch is in, Scoop 'em Net's in. So many reasons to not like this. We have Sandaconda, which can do a 60 multiplier for 6 cards that you discard from the top of your deck for each fighting that you discard. So it's a bit of a gamble and definitely not worth taking, but there you go. It's a fighting type at the very least, which is kind of cool. We've got some Rapid Strike Phalanx, 110 hit point Rapid Striker that has Rapid Strike formation, 20 times the number of each of your Rapid Strike Pokemon in play. So possibly a little Phalanx deck going on, probably better than the current Phalanx deck that we have. It's only a 20 times multiplier, which is really, really weak. But you can just spam the board of a ton of Octillery and have a chain of Phalanx every single turn in the game, basically. No doubt, if you just have the 4/4 Octillery and 4 Phalanx, you'll always have your next Rapid Strike Energy, you'll always have your next Phalanx, etc. But yeah, definitely not good enough. We do have the Urshifu V and VMAX, so again, weak to Psychic. So, I mean, I'm still really hyped by these cards, but I'm really worried that they're still weak to Psychic, and it's such a prevalent type, and Mewtwo just makes the type even more prevalent, which makes me super nervous for these cards. But Rapid Strike Urshifu V, 220 hit points, Strafe does 1 for 30 and switch to the bench, which is actually kind of nice, protecting yourself. And 100 Furious Blows does for fighting colorless, 150 vanilla, not too great. But the Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX seems really, really appealing to me. 330 hit point, fighting type. You have Gale Frost doing for 1 fighting, 30, and if this moved into the active during the turn, you do 120 more. So 150 for 1, pretty efficient. You do have the damage mod from Dojo again, which is worth noting. So that's pretty okay. You're not really able to 2-shot VMAXs, which is a bit of a problem. So you're going to need some help with damage mod at some point, somewhere. What's the best tool for this guy? I'm not sure, really. The good news is you're a fighting type, so you can take those easy Gust prizes on Crobats and Dedennes, which is always nice. And you could easily weave Cheryl into the deck because you can heal and just retreat easily with that Stadium card that Octillery can even search out for you, which is nice. You've got that G-Max Rapid Flow attack for fighting colorless. You discard all energy from this Pokemon, and this attack does 122 of your opponent's Pokemon. So this one can probably beat Mad Party and the Whimsicott deck a lot more reasonably than the single strike build, at least, because if you are able to like kill their Mew or something, you can then try and like rapid flow through 2 Teacups or 2 Whimsicotts at the same time and maybe have a chance of winning even with weakness. You're still really bad into Mewtwo at any point, but maybe this one has more staying power for that reason. Like I said, more synergy with Cheryl, which is really nice, because it's not too much to ask for to just be moving between these guys quite easily. At the same time, I was going to say you're not too worried about hammers as well, which is an issue for the single strike guy. Obviously, it discards from itself, but if you're trying to build towards 4 energy, hammers at any stage is going to be really annoying for you, whereas this one isn't worried about hammers, which is a big tick in its direction because hammers are everywhere right now. So Gale Frost helping out there is really cool. And obviously G-Max Rapid Flow can just be that 1 energy that you already had on you, and then you attach the Rapid Strike energy, and you can do those 2 120 damage pings, which is very nice. I think that damage is solid for dealing with 1 prize Pokemon more often than not. trying to set up that VMAX, but not really. It doesn't really set up math for the Gale Thrust too easily. So this is probably trying to do similar to like Golisopod kind of things, where you're just coming in, hitting, picking it back up, hitting with it again, that sort of thing. Just keep swinging with Cheryl most of the time. That's kind of the reason why I was thinking that you probably won't play Octillery with this, because you don't really want to Karina a lot of the time. You just want to keep swinging with the Gale Thrust. I keep doing this, but yeah, you've got Rope, you've got Switch, you've got Birdkeeper, you've got Cheryl, and the Stadium to just retreat in between your guys. That's kind of the main things I'm seeing here. The Psychic Weakness makes me really Monka-S about Urshifu, though. As long as Mewtwo's around, I'm still worried. Again, this one can't really use Weak Guard Energy too well. It can use it slightly better, because you can have the Rapid Strike Energy for these two, and then the one colorless, so maybe slightly better. We have Steelix, which is flipping some coins. Nice artwork, though. We've got a Pawniard with some art. We've got a Bisharp with some art. We've got... Oh, yeah, I did forget about the Corviknight V and VMAX. It's a 210 hit point V Pokemon. Clutch means the opponent can't retreat, and it does 30 damage for 1. And Sky Hurricane does 190 and can't use it next turn for 3 energies. Obviously falling short of Zacian, but Zacian's broken. Corviknight V Max has the ability Luster Body, prevent all effects of your opponent's abilities done to this Pokemon. What abilities are we afraid of being done to us? Not a huge amount, right? Not a huge amount that we're afraid of, I don't think. It's nice that we can't be like poisoned or something like that to keep Eternatus out of range. I guess it just keeps Eternatus away from killing you, even with Zigzagoon and that sort of stuff. Is there anything else we're afraid of ability-wise? Not too much, right? But you do have the G Max Hurricane for Metal Colorless 240, and you can't use G Max Hurricane during your next turn. But you have free retreat, and again, all those options that I mentioned a moment ago. I kind of like Corviknight. Here's the thing, right? There's just so... There's already been a lot of Metal VMAXs. Copperaja never saw the light of day. Aegislash never saw the light of day. Scizor never saw the light of day. Corviknight probably falls in the same category because you're always competing with Zacian, basically. And you're basically doing the exact same things of Zacian. You're doing 240 damage. You have Saucer Synergy. You have to move in and out of this guy to attack. You have slightly more hit points, but you're slightly more set up at the same time. And there's not too many benefits to this over Zacian, I would say. So that's a big issue overall. We've got a new Cataday attacker. Perugly can attack for 120 for free because it has the Cataday attack. This is actually pretty interesting. So Cataday is obviously now committing to 2 stage 1s, which makes it slightly more clunky. We do get the level ball, though, which is going to make it easier to at least get the basics out in the early turns. Perugly doing that 120 is going to be really nice to set up the Meowstic a lot easier, because 120 then goes to 240 with the Meowstic. Am I thinking of Meowstic? No, I'm thinking of Esper. Esper can do that 240 snipe in the back, so if you just boss or Fion or whatever else, you can then push them to the bench for the Esper to take a big, chunk into them. So the Perugly is basically 2-shotting VMAXs, which is interesting. So yeah, that's interesting, but still multiple stage 1s. I keep saying the word interesting, but what I'm trying to say is bad. We've got a Bouffalante that does additional damage to grass types, already the weakest type in the game. And we will end on Indeedee, which I am going to have fun trying to build. It's a 90 hit point colorless basic. Has 2 attacks. The first is Collect, that draws you 2. And then we have Hand Kinesis, which does 10 times the 10 times the number of cards in your hand. So I'm going to try and build, instead of Salazzle Hand, I'm going to build Salazzle Indeedee and do a 10 times multiplier for each card in my hand. So the idea being you can play Welder onto Indeedee, you can play Quad Salazzle, Fire Crystal, Hearth, and just go ham with your hand just to hit around the sort of like 200 mark or whatever for the Indeedee. That's going to be the idea there. Sounds a lot of fun to me. Another fun 1-prize deck, and probably more consistent than a lot of the others as well. So maybe Indeedee is better than Mad Party and better than all these other options that we've mentioned so far, just because you have the best draw engine to fall back on. You have a 4/4 Salazzle line, which means you draw better than all the others. Possibly, who knows? So yeah, Indeedee could be fun for that regard. Its multiplier is really low, so it's probably going to be terrible, especially in a format now where Cheryl is more likely to see play in a number of VMAX decks. It becomes a lot worse to try and set up 2-shots, but Salazzle hand used to be able to get to 35 cards, so maybe Indeedee can get to that range in the late game and just do a huge swing. There are multiple Marnies in the format and stamps, which makes this a lot worse, but we'll ignore that and try and have a highlight reel moment with Indeedee hand. So, my overall thoughts, was there much to talk about for the Mustard supporters, right? Right now we haven't seen much from those guys. The interesting thing about Battlestars is we're meant to be getting those 60 cards, so maybe there are some additional stage 2s from either Rapid or Single Strike that are going to be really useful. I think both Urshifus are interesting, but struggle with their typing out the gate. As good as fighting is, Psychic Weakness is really, really bad for the format. The Mimikyu I'm really interested in. I think this is a really, really strong card. Primeape has a good enough multiplier to maybe build towards. Houndoom is obvious synergy with the Stadium for the... with Rapid for Single Strike in general, but you would play a super thick line because you have the Stadium as well. Bronzong with Cheryl seems insane for not only a metal-style VMAX deck, but also possibly an Aurora-style deck. Could even be with... could even just be like Aurora, Mewtwo kind of box, because that's the only deck right now playing Auroras, right? So yeah, what else is there? I think Stoutland is potentially strong. Need to work with him. Every Single Strike card reads draw 2 if you have the Stadium in play, which is interesting. The energy is obviously broken. Salazzle, Weeping Bell, maybe a fun stage 1 deck. A lot of setup really for one prize decks coming back post rotation. I still think most of them fall to ADP right now. Maybe Salazzle gets it because it can one-shot the ADP in theory. But a lot of the others won't, and that's going to be a problem for them. Kricketune is a nice extra card to help against Reset Stamp, another hand disruption. Cherim's nice for some one prize attacking grass decks. Victini is one for the future for sure. I like how that's placed post rotation. Kingdra's the Dreamer deck. We've got to juggle some balls, which is nice next set. Artillery looking really good, but I can also see a build where you just don't play Artillery and just try and spam Urshifu with the good, like Dedenes and Crobats and that sort of thing, and you just move in and out of those instead. And the main reason is because you can Cheryl more. If you're Dede changing for 6, you can act as a Cheryl and still have plays that turn, which is kind of the idea. And what else is super interesting? Not a huge amount. So the set's interesting, kind of good, kind of excited. It's at least going to be a change up. I'm paranoid that Mewtwo and some of the current one prize Psychic decks kind of bully out the Urshis right now. I'm hoping that the Single Strike can at least beat the one prize builds if you have ways to kill the Mew quickly and easily. So we'll see how that goes. Let me know what you guys thought about this first impressions. I'm going to be doing a set review closer to the time. Normally I do it a month before, so kind of towards the middle of Feb, I'll be trying to do a full set review where I'll talk about the combos in more detail and actually look through the set more than once and actually discuss it with people and get a better picture of how the decks will be looking. That's when I can start rating these cards more concretely. But let me know what you thought about some of these initial thoughts, and if you have any differing ones, I'd love to hear it down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video tomorrow. Cheers.